Thank you very much for joining us for this podcast. I want to talk to you today about human rights and the release of our annual report. The United States is committed to promoting respect for human rights globally, and we believe this report is an important part of that commitment. We assess virtually every country in the world, and that includes how we are doing ourselves in the United States. This year, we are introducing a new format that shortens the report, makes it easier to read, and concentrates on those areas in which additional progress is needed to meet international standards. Now, because the report itself focuses less on improvements over the previous year, I want to highlight some areas where Georgia made important progress in 2011. Those areas include construction of new prisons that meet international standards, the introduction of jury trials for certain crimes, and the opportunity for minority religions to register as entities of public law in Georgia. We also see areas where more progress is needed, and we do so in the context of our support for everyone in Georgia, inside and outside government, committed to defending and promoting human rights. As Secretary Clinton said in a speech on human rights last year, democracies demonstrate their greatness not by insisting they are perfect, but by using their institutions and their principles to make themselves more perfect. Here in Georgia, we remain concerned with reports of abuse of prisoners and detainees and dangerously substandard conditions in some prisons. Shortfalls in the rule of law linger, including concerns about the judiciary's even-handed application of due process protections. Although a wide variety of views are presented on independent media, direct or indirect government influence over major broadcasters remains a concern. Government interference with unions' freedom of association also continues to be a problem. And we remain concerned that individual members of security forces who used excessive force against demonstrators following the May 26 protests have not been held criminally accountable. Unfortunately, the occupied regions of Abkhazia and South Ossetia remain outside the government's control, and access to these regions was severely limited. Reports of human rights violations in those regions continued. We continue to call on access to the territories for the international community so we all can investigate and address violations occurring there. The United States continues to believe that stronger Georgian democracy requires the most competitive possible environment for the upcoming parliamentary and presidential elections. That's why much of our assistance to Georgia, including $60 million in new investments last year, is focused on supporting electoral reform and strengthening the rule of law, independent media, and civil society watchdogs. A free and fair election depends not only on what happens on Election Day, but also on the political climate that exists in the months leading up to the election. We have been concerned by reports of harassment of the political opposition. We also believe that violence, threatened or actual, by anyone, has no place in this campaign or the electoral environment. Nor do statements or proposals promoting intolerance within Georgian society. Our government has an unshakable commitment to the engagement, support, and protection of civil society and human rights defenders. Secretary Clinton has urged leaders in governments to treat civil society as partners, not adversaries. To that end, the embassy will continue to engage with civil society, including religious leaders, human rights defenders, media representatives, and opposition figures. And senior U.S. officials will continue to engage senior Georgians whenever we have concerns about democracy and human rights in Georgia, just as we will not hesitate to acknowledge and welcome progress. A copy of our country report for Georgia is available on our website, and we'll have a Georgian translation of the report available within 1 month. If you're interested in reading about how we assess our own progress in the United States, that report is available on the Maine State Department website. Thank you very much for joining us today.